So in this week's tutorial, we are going to sort of finalise and bring together all those different areas that we've been covering over the last sort of 10 weeks. So at this stage, we're going to start to bridge together the bouncing balls that we've created, the movements, the squash and stretch, the keyframes, the textures that we've added to those files, and the sort of performance elements. And we're going to literally now get to that point where we are ready to render. Now last week I asked you to create lights, so obviously they're not on this scene currently, so I'm just going to go and add some in very quickly. I was going to get some 3 directional lights, and I'm just going to put them just around this centerpiece here, and I'm just going to very quickly duplicate that by pushing Ctrl D, rotating that 180 in the Y, which should hopefully, oh, it's could put 10, 180 is what I needed, and I'm just going to duplicate that one again, move that over here. Okay, I pushed Ctrl D, but the other one seems to have gone. Okay, so let's just put that back. Ctrl D again. There we go. And I'm just going to take that back to 90. Which I'll put it in there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to imagine at this point is where my camera is. I'm just going to rotate that backlight down, and I'm going to put that around 50, 0.5, so 50% lighting, and from the top I'm going to do minus 45. My hands are all over the place this evening. There we go. Turn hardware texturing back on, and my fill light will be, if you go to the attribute editor, 0.3, and I'm going to put my main at 1. So my main light is, I'm going to have, what colour should I have? I'm going to keep it white. I think my shadow is going to be, my fill light is going to be blue, just to contrast the orange of the object, and I think my fill light will be blue, but also just slightly lighter. Okay, so turn those lights on. Let's just turn that back, see how it looks. Also you can see when them lights are hitting there, got the light coming through, and that's right, the shadows are coming at the side. So I'm just going to rotate this light slightly and rotate our main light just a little bit more. Cool. So got some really nice sort of textures there, some cool light showing through. I wonder if I change that to a slightly darker blue. Yeah, that's looking cool with the purple. And I might change, in fact actually I'll probably change this one to a dark blue, and change this to a purple, a pinky purple. Yeah, I kind of like that, that's kind of cool. So you can see those different colours turning in there now. And I just wonder what will happen if I make this a light blue. Yeah, it's not really working. I think I'll stick with the white. Okay, so we've got our lights in there. The good thing about directional lights is it will come in at imagine these arrows all along every point of this screen. All of this direction it is travelling across that way. So it doesn't matter where these are, the light will still affect it, hit it the same. So this week we're going to add cameras, and we're going to start to render out our image, and once we've exported that, we're going to get it into Premiere, etc, etc. So what I'm going to do is go to create, go to cameras, and I'm just going to create a normal camera. Okay, and we can name this render camera 1, and these are all of our camera attributes. And again, like with most channel box, with most objects, you have a channel box which you can use to change. Okay, and I'm going to pull this up, and I'm going to bring my camera to about here. And to see what that camera can see, we can take that to go to our panels, go to our perspective, and you'll see camera 1, okay, which is our camera here. If we push play, we can see that the board is bouncing off there in that direction. Okay, and if we want to see the frame of our camera, we can click this section here, which will show that frame, and we can move this around in a viewport and it will follow. Okay, and we can set up our camera position, which is pretty cool. And then obviously if we're not happy with that, we can go back to our perspective and we can change the angle our camera is moving from. So I'm actually going to bring this to, I'm just going to stop that. I'm just going to bring the camera down from this end and have it bouncing towards the camera. So the ball's last frame is around here, and so I'm going to situate my camera just in front of that, and have it so when it bounces it falls just right in front of it. So because it's quite difficult to see the position of the camera here because we don't have our grid, I'm just going to go to my orthographic mode. I'm going to go to front, and I'm just going to, so that's the angle that I want. I'm just going to take those back to 0, and I'm going to rotate that around to 90 degrees. I'm going to take my camera down here. I'm going to rotate that up, but actually I'm going to want it not completely in front of it. I want it to go from the side, so I'm just going to go to the side view. Yeah, that's great. So now you can see I want my camera around here, sort of looking up at that ball. So if we go to our camera 1, and we can see that perspective. So this point is where I want my camera to end. Okay, so I want it to follow it till it gets to this point here. So all of these settings I'm going to freeze. In fact, actually I'm going to freeze its transformations. So I'm going to go to modify, freeze transformations, and I've not got the object selected, so let's just go back. Cool. Right, so let's go to panels, perspective, let's select our camera. I'm going to go modify and see if it'll let me freeze them. It won't. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to select all of these channels here, and we're going to key select. Okay, so what we're going to do is actually have our camera track the bounce of the ball, at least from where it starts to where it ends. So at this point we can see the camera is not in on this. Okay, so I'm going to rotate this slightly. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to split the windows. I'm going to change this panel down here to camera 1, and it might be very difficult to see, so we're just going to pull this up. And I'm just going to turn that around so we can see the ball. We'll keep it just to the left slightly so we can see it coming across the screen. And I'm going to key those selections, and hopefully what will happen is as we move along, okay, it's not actually animating it for us. That's interesting. The keyframe I had before is not saved. So down here, go back. Let's just turn hardware detection on there. I'm going to key those selections. Okay, there we go. And now in this window I'm going to select our camera, and I'm going to rotate that around, and then I'm going to key that selection again. Now hopefully what will happen now is our camera will move with it. And you can see that happen. Now what's happening is because we are we can see these lights, it means that it's giving us a reference point to show the camera's moving. If I was to take every element out of the background, we would not know the camera was moving. So what's really useful at this point is potentially to create a floor object. Okay, so what I'm going to do is create a plane. So I'm going to click this icon here, or I can go to create, polygons, and plane. Okay, which creates a little plane object. I'm going to push R. I'm going to scale up my object and pull these out. And I'm just going to pull that down a little bit. I'm going to go to panel, camera 1, and as you can see, we can now see that floor that ball's bouncing on, and it's just above. So what we're going to do is we're just going to lift that up slightly, and we're just going to infinitely make that longer. I don't think it's going to make too much difference at that point, but we're going to certainly make it that longer, not longer, sorry, have more depth. So I'm just going to go to perspective, and at this point I'm just going to select how am I going to do it? Yeah, in fact, actually, I'm going to delete that. We're going to create a cube. So I'm going to go to the shelf again. I'm just going to give that some width and height, width and depth. And then we want width. Just type in 1000. I'm just going to go back to my camera 1. And obviously we can't see at this point, so we'll go back to fast perspective. Yeah, our camera's inside it. So what we're going to do is just pull that down. Then we're just going to move to the ball is hitting the ground there. And then we're just going to pull that up to about there, and then we'll go back to our camera 1. And now that floor will show to us that it's moving. Let's go back to camera 1. So I'm just gonna go to perspective. I'm just gonna key those in again, and then just see how this plays. So you can play around with the camera, play around with its movement, make it a bit more dramatic. Yeah, I like that. So we've got our depth of field coming down here, got the lines moving that perspective down that path. And obviously as it comes round, we've got a really sort of dramatic shot there from a lower angle. Okay, which is pretty cool. So what we're going to do is I'm going to probably just do a quick render, see what that texture looks like. And yeah, of course we've got a nice flat image there, so I might want to add a texture onto this ground and this surface. What I'm going to do is I'm going to just quickly take I'll go to Hypershade. So if you can't remember how to get there, you can click the small icon here, and I'm just going to assign this texture and just see what this looks like. Obviously it's been stretched out, so just as a little test, I'm going to see what that looks like. It's hideous. Absolutely hideous. Obviously we're far too close to it, it's been stretched far too much. However, yeah, I don't like it. I think what we had before was probably a lot nicer. Just a flat colour. So I'm gonna try this orange one that I've got from last time as well. I can't remember what it's like. Let's look at some materials to selection, and let's just do a quick render. So what that's like. Yeah, that's kind of cool. It kind of fits in with the ball. So I'm just gonna bring it down to around here, or around there. Let's do it again, and I mean that will do for now, I think, for this level. And so now I'm ready to actually render out this sequence. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my render settings. Okay, I'm just going to very quickly save that as well. So we're going to go to, just going to save, continue, and in this one what we are going to do is change. So we're going to go work through our way for this. So we want to have our Maya software on. We want to change our image file to a JPEG. Our file name will be bounce _1 _ again. This means that we can add, it will add numbers here. We want a series of frames, so we need to change our extension. So it needs to be name _ number, and the ext will be the file type. So in this case, it will be JPEG. Okay. So if you can place that there, frame padding depends how many frames we're using. We're doing 50. So really, that only needs to be 2. So does that play real time? I think it actually plays a little slower than what it should be. Which is fine, we can slow it down, we can slow that frame rate down. We're going to have a start frame on 1, our end frame on 50, and we'll have this on camera 1. We'll change this to HD, so we'll have HD 1080, which will give us 1920 by 1080, which is full HD. And yeah, cool. So what we need to do is save this. So we're just going to go to edit, change the directory, go down to images. You may want to create a folder on the desktop. Okay, so create a folder on the desktop and just call this whatever you know, put your name on it. In this case, I'm literally just going to do it in here, and I'm just going to call this render bounce 1. Okay, and I'm going to select that, going to accept, and then I'm going to go up to go to animation. I think it's in animation. It looks like they may have changed it. So just looking for batch render. I'm sure it was rendering. There we go. Go to rendering menu set. Go to render, and then go down to batch render. Okay, which means it won't just render one frame. It will render the batch of them. In this case, all 49 of our 1 to 50. So click continue with our 50 frames. And what will happen is, it depends on your how much you need to do, but you'll see down here it says result rendering with Maya software. So it will ram this preview up, it will load the preview up, it will get the settings, and then you will see very shortly that it will start to render it out very quickly. So what we're going to do while that's doing that, in fact we'll just wait for it to start doing it just so I can show you. Hopefully it won't take too long. And we're going to start to look at Adobe Premiere. And there we go. Now you can see that moving. I'll just move my mouse. You can see how quickly that's rendering that out. So that's each frame. You can see the numbers on the edge there. So that's doing that. We're going to go into Premiere. I've loaded it up. You'll see there's nothing here. First thing we need to do, go File, go to New, and go to Project. This will allow us to create our sequence. So we can just use that. We don't need to worry about that. Time code, and we want audio samples, DV. We're going to use HDV. Click OK, and this will load up more settings. So that's still rendering out there nicely. This is loading still. Obviously, because it's rendering out, it's going to take a little while longer. So obviously you get the clash between the fighting over the GPU. So the rendering is finished. So while this is still loading, we'll go into find our rendering. So if I go down to my documents, if I go down to Maya and projects, bouncing ball, and we go to images, and we go to the render bounce ball, and you can see all of our frames there. And this one, so if we, I've just opened Photoshop. No, I haven't. Thank God for that. So you can see there's our shadow, there's our ball. Now I haven't put any shadows on, which obviously helps with the speed of the render. But you know, you can see each frame that ball is moving. And essentially, we're going to load these into Premiere. So in here will be our timeline, for which we can navigate around. This will have our preview, and this is some effects controls that we can add to our clips. So the first thing we're going to do is import some objects into here. So I'm going to go to import, and I'm going to import a sequence. Okay, so go to sequence, and it will open this up. So the first thing we want to do is create our image size. So this is where your understanding of like screen sizes and ratios will become important. So 4:3 is like the old TVs that you used to get. Modern HD TVs and 4K TVs run off HDV, and we can create a 1080 24 frames per second. Okay, or 25 frames per second. We'll go 25. And you'll see now we've got our timeline, we've got our blank video, and we have our sequence there. So what we need to do now is import our images. So we don't want to create new, we just want to go to import. So this has actually changed since the last time I've been on this. So import, there we go, import. That's the same, I was just being blind. So what we can do is go to where, so in your case go to the desktop, in my case I'm going to go to my documents. I'm going to find my Maya file, projects, bouncing ball, images, render bounce, and there we go. Now if I import from this with just selecting that image, what will happen is it will just import one image. But if I want the sequence, I have to check this little box here that says image sequence, and it will treat it like a sort of movie file. So if I click open, you'll see I have my bouncing ball there, so I hover over it. How good's that? So if I move my mouse along, you'll see it bouncing. That's really cool. So I'm going to drag this onto the video sequence. Click change sequence settings, because it will adapt to what we're importing here. If I play that preview now, we can see my bouncing ball, which is really cool. So at this point, obviously you're creating your show reel. You may need to import your other images, or your images or videos that you've created within your other sessions, which will go towards creating this bounce. Okay, which means you'll be able to create your show reel. So it's looking cool, and hopefully your bounces, you know, depending on what the other tutors have got you to do, you may just have a series of videos that are different bounces and different balls. Okay, so please, by all means, play around. And again, you may want to create a title. So you can go down to title, and we can just call it title portfolio. I call it show reel title 1. And what this will do is bring up the text editor, and this will allow you to create a text. So you can type your name, Adam Weaver. I quite like that typeface, I don't want to change it now. And I'll call this Show Reel 2015. Okay, let's come up with the wrong numbers. 2015, there we go. And you know, I can bring that into the middle, and if I click, that's okay, I can click close, and then what will happen is I can drag that in at the start, so I can then move it down, I can move this down, and then at the very beginning you'll see we've got my name, and that goes on a lot longer than my animation. So this is where, when you, as you build up your portfolio over the next couple of years before you go for your university interviews, you may want to start to bring collect these pieces of work. Okay, so in this video, again, sorry, if we want to edit the title, we can. So we can go in, we can check some of these presets. You can also download your own typefaces from places like thefont.com, which have got some really cool ones. But just remember, they are subject to copyright. Again, you know, you can select the text. So let's just have a look. I've downloaded quite a few recently, so maybe they're on here. Maybe not. Yeah, there we go. That kind of looks cool. So again, it's sort of combined. I think it's combined that and them now. So if I change that to that, and if I go back to this, maybe it hasn't. It might just be the preview window. So that's kind of cool. And yeah, you can pull that in. And these are obviously all your settings. You can change the colour. So I do have an orange with it on that wall, so maybe you want to go for a certain theme, and click OK, change the colour, and you can add gradients, that kind of thing. Just experiment around. Again, don't worry if things go horribly wrong, because you can always change them, you can always edit them and recreate them. So again, that image sequence now has the orange writing with a different typeface. Okay, so once you've done this and you've got your show reel and you're really happy with it, so I'm going to drag this on multiple times just to flesh it out a little bit. It will be time to render your sequence, export your sequence. So imagine you've got loads of little videos and you're ready to export something. Get closer on this because I can see, looks like a little gaps there isn't. So if I play this through, hit play, and you can see now that that is ready to render, which is cool. So we're going to export it, which is obviously rendering. So I'm going to go to File, Export, get to Media, and this brings up our render video. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I want to do this in as a compressed version. So the compression, a good compressor is the H.264, and it'll create a MPEG 4. Okay, and I'm going to change to that. And you can see here we've got 1920 by 1080, 25 frames per second, and that is exactly what we want. So we can go to effects, audio, everything's fine. We can go use maximum render quality, which increases the time, but again, that's what we want. Now the one thing we do want to do is make sure that we're saving it to the right place with the right title. So we can select that, you can go to your desktop and just we can do your name, so Adam Weaver render, well actually let's do show reel 2015, and we can click, so yeah, MP4, save, and then we can go export, and that will now export that, and in a second we'll be able to see that on our desktop where it's been saved. So once it's there, if we just close these off, and you'll see here we have that show reel, and if we double click it, we'll be able to see that play. Okay. So again, there's many more little bits of skills like motion blur and things that we can add to this, add shadows. But again, as your basic introduction to these techniques and these skills, we've come a long way in just a very short space of time. You've covered all the basics. You've looked at lights, cameras, texturing, animating. Not so much the modeling side, but obviously that will come with time. Okay, so if you have any questions, again, you can always drop a comment in the comments box. You can email me for those of you on the course. But again, we'll look at this in the lesson, and hopefully when you do your presentations in a couple of weeks' time, they're going to look awesome. So take care, and I'll